Hey, would you love to simplify your homeschooling so that you have a little bit more time for hospitality, both to your own children and your own husband and your community? Grab my new book, The Inspired Homeschool. In The Inspired Homeschool, I share about 10 homeschoolers from history and the way they were educated that nurtured curiosity and genius and provided a lot of freedom as well. In the Inspired Homeschool, I don't just share stories, but I also share practical applications so that you can nurture a homeschool that gives people time to explore and learn and develop virtue and faith and curiosity about the world around them. From stories like Leonardo da Vinci and C.S. Lewis and Laura Ingalls Wilder and Benjamin Franklin, we talk about principles like habits and the atmosphere of the home and presenting great ideas through literature. The book is a thorough introduction to homeschooling, but it's also going to be so good to hand out to those like doubting relatives or the parents who ask, what are you doing and what is this thing you're doing? You can say to them, hey, mom and dad, history was homeschooled and this book shows you how. Grab the Inspired Homeschool book at inspiredhomeschoolbook.com or anywhere books are sold. This is Jennifer Pepito with the Restoration Home podcast. This is the show where we talk about life-giving habits for flourishing families. Today on the show, I'm so excited to be chatting with Mystie Winckler. She has been blogging for years at Simply Convivial, so simplyconvivial.com. And her new book, Home is for Hospitality, is all about hospitality as a spiritual discipline. Thanks so much for joining me today, Mystie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm delighted to get to chat with you. Hospitality is one of the spiritual disciplines I talk about in Habits for a Sacred Home. It's a book about the rule of St. Benedict and how we can apply that to our lives as modern Christian women. And so it's one of those really life-changing habits that we even emphasize in the Restoration Home community because you don't have true spiritual development without a community. But I think a lot of people are very isolated, really, really struggling to know how to get started. They maybe didn't grow up with a mom who sort of made a home. And so then they feel so inadequate about their homes, they can't even think about hospitality. How did you start realizing how important hospitality was?
Well, when I was a young married mom, just having kids, had like it was about the time where I had my third. I feel like that's about the time where things start falling apart. You can't hold it together anymore. I was really trying to get out of as much housework as I could. I was trying to set up systems and plans, and I spent way more time planning cleaning systems than actually cleaning. And my whole goal in setting up those systems was to spend as little time as possible cleaning. And so I just started doing less and less until I got to a point where God just kept bringing conviction from different avenues that this was not okay, this is not how I was supposed to live, or how I was supposed to be using my home for my family and also for God. And so, I started reading all the homemaking books and trying to actually put some time into doing all the plans that I had made. And it really began a journey of recovering my house because it was a chaos. And in that process, I just really wanted to know why I had to. That's what I kept procrastinating the cleaning because it just didn't make sense to me that it was important enough to spend as much time as it took. So I was resentful about the housework and just had a bad attitude problem that God kept peeling the layers. And I was blogging at the time, so I was writing about what I was learning, and that helped me process and learn those lessons. And other ladies, related. I was not the only one. And one thing that, every once in a while we would have people over for dinner from church. and that kind of thing. And I think our pastor did a series on hospitality or something at some point, somewhere in there. My husband decided that we really should have people over more often. And I was like, well, I've got to keep, not just get my act together, but then keep it together to do it, not just one off things. And, um, and so, over the years, I've been married. This will be our 25th year of being married. And I just came to see through the experience and through God's working and all of that, that the housework isn't just mundane, boring, dull work that somebody has to do, and I'm the one that got stuck doing it. It's not just necessities that we should get out of the way so that we have enough time to go do other big important things. It is tending and taking care of the home, and the home is a base for people to be built up, encouraged, and be created in the first place, and grown and developed. And so much is happening in our home that, of course, it takes tending and time so that it can be the kind of place where people flourish. And then when you see your home as the kind of the stage for life and for helping people flourish, it also takes the pressure off of the aesthetic element, where we're not doing it so that it looks a certain way. Because when I got all wrapped up in how it looked, that's when, the kids walk through and mess it up, and then I'm frustrated. And so, just kind of realizing that the home has a purpose, and therefore the work of making, creating, tending a home also has purpose and meaning and value.
Yeah. I think that's so important for moms. I've seen that meme going around that says, it's referring to our tendency to complain about the thing we once prayed for. Like we complain, we dream as young girls, as young women, we dream about being married and having a home of our own. And then we finally have one and we complain about the work of taking care of it. Or we dream of having a family and having children, and then we complain about the work of taking care of them. And so I love that just simple shift of beginning to embrace the work. And, that's a big part of what I talk about in Habits for a Sacred Home, is that shift, of like, Edith Schaefer really helped me with that, of looking at our work as this opportunity to be creative and to partner with God and to make the world a better place, instead of making it seem like we're being victimized by the work. And there's a lot of work. I mean, it is unending. I have I have 7 children, but the last 2 are 17 and 19. So I do not any longer have young children around. I mean, a lot of the work just happens very smoothly. There's not a lot to do. But still, if somebody leaves their plate out, or if someone, they're working and going to school, and so their habits aren't always as high level as I wish. And, it's just so easy to feel victimized by that, instead of just returning some of those reminders that maybe we taught earlier, and that are easy to forget when you have a teen brain or young adult brain. One of the things that you are in this conversation about hospitality, I think about how, to some degree, we first have to be hospitable to our families, to our own children. And it's easy in the age of Pinterest and Instagram to be so much about renovating our homes and making our homes more beautiful, that we forget to make them a refuge for our children. We, in the Restoration Home community, we have moms write down, what do I want my children to remember about life in our home? And I was, there's some ways I was very present with my kids. Like I can remember, sitting in a creek and reading out loud to them, and sitting on the couch and reading. And we did morning time for years and years and years. But there were a few times where I was having people over and I was like barking at everybody to do their chores. And maybe I was like spending too much time trying to get the garden under control. And some of that's good. Like we have to teach work and diligence, but also there has to be that balance of like, okay, work 6 days and rest on the seventh. Like there has to be times where we're fully present and not just always barking at our kids about picking up, or that there's never any freedom to make a big Lego mess or whatever. So how do you balance that, like creating a home that's hospitable for outsider, that's a lovely place, but also being hospitable to our own children?
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the most, there are many convicting moments in motherhood, but I definitely remember, times where we were going to have people over. And so like having people over is being hospitable, right? But then the way I was treating my children while we were getting ready for those guests was not at all hospitable. And then someone knocks on the door and you switch on a dime, and you can go from yelling at the kids to do what they're supposed to be doing to just being chill and pleasant. And I was like, oh, this is not, I think they call this hypocrisy. This is not good. And so, um, as we got more practice in extending hospitality, I realized the hospitality has to start with my own family and how I treat them. And because it's obvious that I have and do just change my tone at when I pick up the phone, when I answer the door, if I can change my tone and my facial expression for someone coming in, I can also do that for my kids, and I should. Like, why do I change my tone? It's because I want to be kind and friendly, and don't I want to be that with my children? And they aren't making me not be kind. That's on me, not on them, because I have the ability to turn that on. And so I can turn that on for them first, so that when I open the door, I'm extending out what really does exist in our home. Hospitality to people outside our home should be an extension of what's really happening in the home. So it starts with our family and investing in one another and conversations and family dinners. And then you can invite other people into that. You're not putting on a show, you're not entertaining. You have a home and you're inviting other people in. I have a chapter in the book called The Concentric Circles of Hospitality. So the heart or the center of the circle of hospitality is just the family that lives in the home. And you have to start with hospitality there, like family dinners, having meaningful conversations, being cheerful with one another, asking for forgiveness when not when we sin against one another, and just operating, in fellowship with one another. And when we have that center, then we can invite in our church family. The church should be our extended family, and we want to have the people that we're going to church with into our homes and be in one another's homes. That's one way that we love one another, have fellowship and connection, and share life, is by sharing the life that we have as a family and extending that within the church body. And then the circle after that is evangelistic type of hospitality, having coworkers over or people from the sports team, or God puts us in contact with different people, and our home is one of the places that he gives us to use to invite in people. And we might be called to look for them very intentionally, but often it'll be wherever we've been placed and with people we're running into. We should have a home where we can say, hey, come on over and have coffee, or bring your kids over and we'll talk about that. Or like our home can be a place that we can bring people in to share what a happy family looks like, because a lot of people have no idea right now.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Just that idea of our homes being, St. Benedict said, a school for the service of the Lord, but our homes are a home for the service of the Lord. And we've had the same experience where inviting in younger families or inviting in people who didn't know the Lord just experiencing the love that we had for each other or the joy that we have with each other. Those kinds of things are very life changing for people, and especially in a culture where a lot of people are very alone, very isolated. It's just so life giving to be around a family. We, I feel like the more you get into those home situations too, like you can get to a certain level of community, going to church with people or being in a small group with people, but there's nothing quite the same as being in a home together and maybe even doing a project like in my homeschool community. We made soap together. Like that's a pretty intense activity to do together where you're having to make sure you don't kill each other. Do you know what I mean, with the fumes of the line, and you're learning something new. You're getting, or getting together with someone and painting each other's kitchens. Like those kinds of things really break down that sort of facade when you're actually doing a project. This is one of the reasons I love helping families do co-ops with the Peaceful Press, because if you are getting together with another family with their small children and your small children, and you're trying to get your kids to do a recitation and they're not feeling it that day, and so then they kind of embarrass you a little bit, like it totally breaks down the facade of perfect parenting, which helps you get closer to each other. And sometimes it's going to be you, and sometimes it's going to be someone else in that community. But getting past that level of surface friendship bonds you for life. Like those women, I don't full-time homeschool anymore. My youngest is almost through with high school, but having those bonds, like we'll be friends forever because we had those experiences together. And yeah, how do people find like it, I've moved a lot, so I understand the process. You find a church for me because I'm homeschooling was so centric to my life. First, we'd find a church where hopefully there was some homeschoolers, like theology, whatever. I needed to have some other homeschoolers there. I'm kind of joking, but not 100% joking. So, try to find a church where there's some homeschoolers or maybe a homeschool group locally, something. And then, you start, like, not everyone's going to be your peep. I mean, we lived in some towns where we would invite people over. We would try to start things and it didn't click. And so you just keep trying, but you do have to get to that point where you invite people over. But that takes like, okay, what does it take? I mean, you could just open a package of Trader Joe's cookies and put them on a plate. You could just put out some fruit and make coffee. You could just make coffee. But I think to start with, if you're showing hospitality, you need to give them something. Like when you invite someone over, like first invite someone over, second, give them something, whether it's a glass of water or lemonade or tea or coffee, give them something. And my mom really modeled this. So tell me about like, what are your sort of first steps? Like you need to show hospitality. The Bible actually commands us to not forget to show hospitality. So what are the steps for the mom who's like, I'm so busy homeschooling. My house is a disaster. I don't even know what to do if somebody did come over.
Yeah, I think so my kind of checklist as I think about it is a clean bathroom, right? Giving, especially if you have boys, give the bathroom a once over before people come over and make sure there's a clean towel. And then that there's a place to sit. Like, we have to move all the books off of the couch so there's a place people can sit down. And then, yeah, some kind of refreshment, even if it's just a glass of water. Someone comes in like, hey, can I get you a glass of water? And that breaks the ice. It really helps just that awkward entrance point. And I do think that the awkwardness is something that people are afraid of, or they think, oh, we felt awkward at this one point, so I'm bad at hospitality, or it wasn't hospitable, or I'm not good at this because there was a moment of awkwardness, or maybe many moments of awkwardness, but there just are. And so it's kind of getting used to letting some things be awkward and moving on and trying again and like laughing it off. And it's okay that there are moments of awkwardness. That's not a failure at all. That just means there are multiple people interacting and coming together, and that's okay. So drink of water is a great one. And then Yeah, sometimes it's not even snacks, but when we would have people over for dinner, for the most part, I just made our normal family dinners and just made more of what was a normal family dinner. A soup and bread and salad, or, whatever pasta dish. Burrito bowls is a good one if you have people with food allergies. Just easy things you already do. They don't have to be special because you're not entertaining. You're just bringing people into your life. So, really, I think the closer it is to your normal family life, you're just sharing your normal life. And the more it is your normal life, like at first that can be like it's kind of personal and can be a little bit intimidating. But because it is just your genuine life, you're not trying to put on a show or be something you're not, or make it look a certain way. That takes a lot of the pressure off. And then when people can see that this is just the way this family is, that this is what they eat, look, it's different from us, but that's it helps them have their guard down, and you really do start connecting just at a better level. I had a friend. Well, she became a friend because she started a play group. There were 6 of us at church that had our first baby the same year, but we were like 11 years apart in age. We weren't really in the same circles or friends before this, but we all had our first baby the same, and so she started a play group, and we met for lunch for 14 years at different, usually at her house, but we swapped houses. And the fellowship that we had, I think, meant so much more because it happened in our homes. And when you do it that often, and through different stages like new babies and all of that, it just gets low key easy. Like, just this is the way it is. And that helps us be there for one another and really understand where one another's coming from and get to know one another so much better.
Yeah. I made so many happy early mom memories. We had a house, and I had, I think 4 or 5 children at the time. And we had a house that was quite a bit out in the country. So it was an expedition for someone to come visit us. We were at least 45 minutes from the nearest city, but it had a little creek running through it. It was seasonal. And so I just have these wonderful memories of having this little group of friends, and we all had kind of the same age young children. And we would sit there on the grass, and the kids would play in the creek, and we would just like enjoy co-regulating. I didn't know that was the word for it then, but we were co-regulating, and that, saved me in motherhood. Those moments that it's like we have our wonderful husbands who are working so hard to provide, but often the things that are bothering us feel so heavy to them. And if we could talk about it with a sister, we could bring more of our joy. And I'm not saying to protect our husbands from the hardships of family life, but I think sometimes we just need to talk about it with someone who has a little bit less skin in the game before we bring our dysregulation to our husbands who are trying so hard to take care of us. And, just so many happy memories with those young friends. And it did start with, we went to church together, and then maybe, one of them invited me over, and we lived in simple homes at the time. It was never like, there wasn't the pressure that there is now, but there was no hardwood floors. There was no built-in bookshelves. You know what I mean? It was like carpet, those old ugly IKEA bookshelves. You know what I mean? It wasn't the same aesthetic pressure that there is today, but we had a lot of fun with our kids. And I do wish that for moms today. Like, I think that, I understand how hard it is to get off our phones. I have a business that's somewhat connected to being on my phone, and yet there's so much distraction that's happening and really taking us away from enjoying our lives. This is a short season. Those of you, especially with young kids, like, it's just over in flash. And the quality of your later years, like, the closeness of my relationships with my children now, they're not writing books about me. Do you know what I mean? They're not, they're still my good friends. And a lot of what we did early on has impacted our relationship as adults. And so there's so many ways that we can choose to spend our time, but being hospitable to our kids, to our community is so powerful. What are some of the other kind of daily habits? Because part of this kind of starts with daily habits. It's like if our homes are completely a wreck all the time, it's going to be hard to pull it together for a hospitality. And some of the things I talk about in Habits for a Sacred Home is like some regular decluttering. Don't shop for fun, because if you end up in your home just being a stuff manager and spending every spare minute decluttering closets or picking up the zillions of toys that you bought your kids on an impulse, it's going to be really hard to invite anyone else in. And it's going to cause a lot of friction. Like, you're not going to be very hospitable to your children if you're spending all your time yelling at them to clean up after themselves.
Yeah. When the kids were little, we did like a toy rotation often, just to kind of keep the amount that was out manageable. Um, but I think the biggest daily habit that made a difference, we in our family we called it EHAP. Everything has a place. So, I had boys first. So, like, I thought it kind of sounds like it's a strategic, like, mission that we're on. We're going to EHAP. And I'd turn on a song, and for 5 or 10 minutes, everyone would clean up our public areas all together with music. So it's not, just me bossing everyone around. I'm really good at going into boss mode because I am the oldest of 7 children. And so I was trying to, like, not channel my oldest sister vibes and just be on the same team together. And everything has a place reminded me the kids can't clean up if there isn't a place for everything. And if they don't know what it is, it needs to be easy for them to know and remember. And there has to actually be a place for things to belong. And so, really, yeah, decluttering and putting things away, organizing with that thought of, I'm giving these things a home. This is where they belong. Because it's clutter if if it's not in its place. Even if it's something you're going to keep, if it's just sitting out all the time, it's clutter. So it needs to have a home, and then there needs to be regular times where we put things in their home. And especially when you're homeschooling and have a bunch of kids, it's going to have to be at least once a day. So making it, though, a short time where it's like, okay, every single day for just 5 or 10 minutes, with a timer or with a song, this is what we do. And we can then do another one if we're having people over, or things can be going crazy and it's like, okay, we need an EHAP before lunch. I'll make lunch, you guys EHAP. And so just to have that shorthand and to have practiced it so many times where it's not something where, like, mom got fed up and so now everyone has to clean, but rather at strategic times, almost every day. This is something we all do together as a team to keep our house working, because our house has to do a lot of work. My husband worked from home while we homeschooled 5 kids, and, like, a lot happened in our home. It took a lot of time to pull it back together every day.
Yeah. Wow, I love those habit ideas. And it makes me think about books, because as homeschool families, we have a lot of books. My husband and I are going through this, like, we bought a house that had some old Christian books, and they're kind of cool. Like, they're old Sunday school manuals and old, Christian biographies. And so on one hand, I don't want to get rid of them, but on the other hand, we have so many books, like closets full and a huge library, and it's a real struggle. So how do you handle, I think for homeschoolers listening, that is one of the, like, clutter items, because it does it gets to a point where there isn't a place for all the books, and there is no more places to build bookshelves.
I know. Yeah, no, that's hard. I really like Dana White's stuff on clutter and space. Like, your containers that you have are your limits. So, if you can add another bookshelf, then try that. And if you can't, then you have to like just cull through the books and remove the stuff that is on the lower end of the quality level, or it's painful to get rid of books, but sometimes it's necessary.
Yes. I asked my husband for a Kindle for my birthday because as much as I don't like the idea of an e-reader, and I like the idea of paper books, I mean, I had, 20 books on my nightstand at any given time. And they're not
I'm
necessarily,
hazard.
yeah, and they're not necessarily books I'm going to read again. Like it's a mix of, like spiritual development and fiction, and they're not necessarily classics that have to be in my library to pass down to my children, So
Right.
that's my strategy for the moment is trying to like minimize how many new books I'm buying. But wow, this has been such a fun conversation today, Misty. One of the questions that we ask is what habit is life-giving for you right now? Doesn't even have to be around hospitality. I would love to hear.
Right now, I think it is that I'm getting up and at 6 in the morning, meeting a friend for a walk every morning. So we just start the day with sunshine and steps and conversation. It helps me actually get up and get some exercise in the morning because I'm meeting someone, and that's one of my favorite habits. That
Oh, that's so
is new
lovely.
to
How
me right
nice. Yeah, how nice
now.
to have someone to attune with right off the bat in the daytime. So
Yeah.
I bet you come back to your motherhood chores a lot more cheerful.
Yep, with the conversation, the steps, and the sunshine all together first thing. It's been great.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining the Restoration Home podcast today. We'll link your beautiful new book about hospitality in the show notes. It's called Home is for Hospitality: Why Your Home and Homemaking Matter by Mystie Winckler. We'll link that and your website, and families can reach out to you there and find out more about your beautiful work with homeschooling. And yeah, just thank you so much for joining today.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer.